Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more amazing HFY stories. Hit the bell icon to get notified about our latest uploads. The stars were endless, a vast and uncharted ocean that stretched beyond the comprehension of even the most advanced civilizations. Yet, to Captain Amelia Novak, the empty vastness of space felt like a familiar friend. As the captain of the Elysium, a deep space exploration vessel, her life had been dedicated to the unknown. But nothing could prepare her for the encounter that would change everything. Amelia stood at the observation deck, gazing out at the swirling colors of a nebula. It had been a routine mission to chart new systems, but everything had felt different this time. A strange, unexplainable pull in her chest had kept her awake the past few nights. A whisper in the back of her mind told her that something was coming, a force, a being, something beyond the human understanding of reality. She didn't believe in omens, but this felt like one. "Captain, we're receiving an unusual signal from Sector 73, said Lieutenant Reeve, his voice cutting through her thoughts. His tone was calm, professional, yet she could sense the undercurrent of unease. Amelia straightened, stepping away from the large window. "Patch it through." The screen flickered for a moment before stabilizing. A series of strange symbols filled the display, geometric patterns, shifting in impossible ways. It was clear that the signal was not of human origin. "Could be some kind of anomaly," Reeves said, trying to rationalize the impossible. "Maybe a distress signal." Amelia studied the patterns closely. "No. This is intentional. Whoever sent this knows what they're doing." She turned to Reeve. "Analyze the frequency. I want to know who, or what, sent this message." "On it, Captain," Reeve replied, his fingers flying across the console. Minutes passed, each second dragging in anticipation. Amelia knew the silence was thick with uncertainty. But there was also something else, something that stirred deep within her, a pull. It was a feeling that she couldn't explain. An ancient, almost primal force calling out to her. The analysis results appeared on the screen, startling the crew. The signal wasn't from any human technology, nor was it from any known alien race. It was unlike anything they had encountered before. But there was one detail that caught Amelia's eye. Embedded in the center of the message, hidden within the codes, was a set of coordinates. "Plot the course," she ordered, her voice steady despite the rush of emotions swirling within her. The crew quickly complied, and the ship's engines roared to life as they altered their trajectory toward the source of the signal. Days later, the Elysium emerged into a new sector of space, one that none of them had ever mapped. The stars here were different, dimmer, perhaps, or just farther away. A feeling of isolation filled the air. But amidst the silence of the unknown, the signal persisted, its call unyielding. The crew had begun to notice strange occurrences, small things at first. Shadows in the corners of their eyes, unexplained static on the comms, and a feeling of being watched. No one could explain it, but each of them felt it. Even Amelia. As the ship neared the source, a planet appeared on their radar, a beautiful world, lush and green with vast oceans. But it was not the beauty of the planet that held Amelia's attention. It was the ship, a massive structure, partially cloaked in the atmosphere, waiting as though it had been expecting them. The Elysium sensors couldn't make sense of the ship's structure. It wasn't made of any known material, nor did it adhere to any known design principles. It was as if it were alive. Its surface seemed to pulse, radiating a soft, soothing light. "Prepare for boarding," Amelia commanded, her voice a mix of determination and curiosity. "This is it. We've come this far. We need answers." The crew moved into action, gathering the necessary equipment and preparing for a landing. As the ship descended toward the surface, Amelia's heart pounded in her chest. She had no idea what they would find, but she was certain of one thing: this was a turning point. The moment the boarding ramp descended, the atmosphere inside the alien ship enveloped them. It was unlike anything they had ever experienced, a mixture of warmth, softness, and an eerie quiet. The interior was vast, its walls flowing with a strange energy that felt alive, almost sentient. "We're not alone," Lieutenant Reeve whispered, his voice tense. "This place, it's alive." Amelia nodded, stepping forward. Her instincts guided her, the pull she had felt growing stronger the closer they got to the heart of the ship. The walls seemed to part before them, revealing a large chamber at the center. And there, standing in the middle of the room, was a figure. It was tall, taller than any human, and cloaked in flowing robes of shimmering material. The figure's features were hidden beneath a hood, but Amelia could feel its presence. A strange energy emanated from it, pulling her closer. "Welcome," a voice resonated in her mind, not through sound but through a deep, universal connection. The voice was calm, wise, and ancient, carrying with it an emotion that was almost impossible to place: sadness, longing, and a deep, boundless love. Amelia stood frozen. "Who are you?" she managed to ask, her voice barely a whisper. The figure's hood tilted slightly, as if considering the question. "I am Xari, the last of my kind," it said, its voice a melodic hum that reverberated through her very soul. "And I have been waiting for you." The words hit Amelia like a physical blow. The pull she had felt, the strange connection, the overwhelming feeling of destiny, all of it clicked into place. This was why she had been chosen. This was why she had come to this point. A relationship, a bond, a love beyond the stars, it was all before her now. But the question was, what would it cost her to embrace it? The chamber was suffused with an ethereal light that seemed to pulse in rhythm with Amelia's own heartbeat. She felt as if the very air around her had taken on a tangible weight, as if she were standing on the precipice of something enormous, something ancient. The figure before her, Xari, seemed to radiate an otherworldly calm, and yet, beneath that tranquility was a profound sadness that permeated the room like an invisible fog. Amelia couldn't move at first. She was caught in the gravity of the moment, trying to reconcile the enormity of the situation with the grounded reality of her own life. This was no ordinary first contact. This was something entirely different. The feeling that had drawn her here, the pull she couldn't explain, it was no accident. She had been called, and now the truth was unfolding before her. Xari stepped closer, the movement fluid and graceful, as if the alien being had no need for physical constraints like gravity or space. Amelia watched, transfixed, as Xari's features became clearer, though still largely obscured beneath the hooded robe. The being's presence was both comforting and disquieting, like an old friend who carried a deep, unspoken sorrow. "You are human," Xari's voice whispered again, not through sound, but directly within Amelia's mind. "I can feel your essence, your emotions, your longing." Amelia's heart skipped a beat. She couldn't explain why, but those words stirred something deep within her, a primal recognition. It was as if Xari knew her in ways that transcended mere introduction. This was not just a meeting between two species. It was something far more intimate. Amelia began, but her voice faltered. She had so many questions, but none of them felt right. Instead, she found herself simply asking, "Why have you been waiting for me?" Xari tilted their head, as if considering the question. "Not only for you, Captain Amelia Novak, but for your kind. The human race. The time of great change is upon us, and you will play a part in it, as will those you call your people." Amelia's breath caught in her throat. "You know who I am." "Of course," Xari replied. "I have been watching. We have been watching. For millennia, we have observed the rise of humanity. Your species is special. Unique in a way that others are not. You have the potential to shift the balance of the cosmos." "Shift the balance of the cosmos?" Amelia echoed, her mind racing. "How? Why? We're just explorers. We're not capable of." "You are capable of more than you realize," Xari interrupted, their voice gentle but firm. "I did not choose you by accident. You are the one who will bridge the gap between the stars, between species, and between what has been and what will be. A strange sensation washed over Amelia, like a flood of emotions that weren't entirely her own. It was as if Xari was sharing their thoughts with her, allowing her to feel the weight of their centuries of existence, the loneliness, the hope, and the yearning that had kept them waiting for this moment. What do you mean, bridge the gap? Amelia asked, though the answer was beginning to form in the back of her mind. Xari slowly raised their hands, and the air around them shimmered. The walls of the chamber seemed to breathe, expanding and contracting like the chest of a living creature. A soft hum filled the room, and Amelia felt herself being pulled toward the alien being, as if by some unseen force. You are not the first to encounter us, Xari said, their voice like a distant melody. There were others, long ago. We came to them with the same offer, the same hope. But they were not ready. They failed us. Amelia's brow furrowed. Failed? How? Their fear, Xari explained, their tone heavy with regret. They feared the unknown, and in doing so, they closed themselves off from what could have been. They rejected the bond we offered. And so, we withdrew, waiting for a time when humanity would be ready. Rejected? Amelia whispered, her mind struggling to process the magnitude of the revelation. But we didn't even know you existed. How could we have rejected you? Xari's hooded head dipped in acknowledgement of her words. That is true. But the rejection was not of us. It was of what we represent, change. Unity. A future where the boundaries between species are no longer barriers, where love and understanding are not confined by the stars themselves. Amelia's chest tightened. The idea of such unity, of such a world, was something that felt almost impossible. Humanity had always been divided, always at odds with itself. How could they possibly embrace a connection so profound with another species? Do you understand now? Xari continued. You, Amelia Novak, have been chosen to break the cycle. To embrace the connection we offer, and to lead humanity into a new era. But how? Amelia asked, her voice trembling. How can we, do something like that? Xari extended a hand, and the air around them rippled like the surface of a still pond disturbed by a stone. First, you must understand the truth of your own heart. Amelia felt a strange pull at the core of her being. It was as if Xari's words were unlocking something within her, something buried deep in her subconscious. She had always believed that humanity's greatest strength was its ability to adapt, to overcome, to grow. But was that enough? Was that truly what would allow them to forge a bond with a race as ancient as Xari's? As if reading her thoughts, Xari spoke again. This journey will not be easy. It will require sacrifice, trust, and, most importantly, love. The love between you and another will be the key. And that love will break the walls between your people and ours. Amelia's eyes widened. Love? The concept felt both alien and familiar, as if the answer lay just out of her reach. Xari smiled gently, though the expression was full of a sadness Amelia could not yet understand. Yes. Love. It is the one force that transcends all boundaries, time, space, even species. It is the foundation upon which the future will be built. Amelia felt a pang deep within her chest. Her mind raced, grappling with the enormity of what Xari was saying. Love, was that really the key? Could such an intangible force truly change the course of history? Before she could process any more of the implications, a low rumble echoed through the chamber. The ground trembled beneath her feet, and Xari's eyes widened, a rare flicker of urgency passing through their otherwise serene expression. The time is drawing near, Xari said, their voice now carrying an edge of warning. The path ahead is not without danger. Others will seek to prevent this union. They will try to stop you before you can fulfill your purpose. Amelia's heart raced. She didn't fully understand everything yet, but one thing was clear, the moment she stepped into this alien world, she was no longer just an explorer. She had become a catalyst for something far greater than she had ever imagined. Her journey, and the future of her people, was about to take an irrevocable turn into the unknown. The chamber trembled with a low, ominous rumble that seemed to come from deep within the very bones of the ship. Amelia's heart pounded in her chest, the quiet terror of the unknown creeping over her. Xari's calm, ancient presence was the only anchor in the sea of uncertainty. Their eyes, glowing faintly beneath the hood, never left her. "What's happening?" Amelia asked, her voice steady despite the racing thoughts in her mind. "The time is upon us," Xari replied, their voice like a soothing melody, though the words carried a weight that Amelia could feel in her bones. "The forces that oppose this union are awakening. They have been waiting, watching, just as we have." Amelia's mind raced. Forces? Opponents? She didn't know what Xari meant, but the urgency in their voice left no room for doubt. She could feel the pressure building in the air, thick with the promise of something huge, something world-altering. The room around them shimmered, the walls pulsating in rhythm with the low hum of the ship. Every inch of the place felt alive, and Amelia had to fight the impulse to back away. "Who are these forces?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. "What do they want with us?" Xari extended their hand, and a bright, shifting symbol appeared in the air, hanging between them like a piece of starlight. It was a complex design, geometric and fluid, constantly shifting, but beneath its movements, Amelia could feel the weight of the centuries embedded in the symbol itself. "They are the remnants of the ancient ones who came before us," Xari said softly, their voice heavy with sorrow. "We sought to unite, to bridge the boundaries between species. But those who feared the unknown, those who rejected the bond, set in motion a chain of events that would bring ruin. These forces were born from that rejection. They have been hunting us ever since, keeping us apart, preserving their fractured order." The words sank into Amelia's mind like stones in still water. The rejection had led to the creation of these enemies. They weren't just an obstacle in the way of peace, they were a product of humanity's own history, of the fear that had once turned away the possibility of unity with the stars. "But how are we connected to them?" Amelia asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "How can we change what happened all those years ago?" Xari's eyes softened. "Because, Amelia Novak, the connection has always been there. You are a descendant of those who were chosen long ago. The rejection, the fear, it lingers in the bloodline of your people. But with this bond, this love that transcends species, that crosses boundaries, you will heal that wound. You will rewrite the past." The words echoed in her mind, reverberating like a song she couldn't quite place. Something deep inside her stirred. She wasn't just the captain of the Elysium anymore. She was part of a legacy that stretched across the stars, beyond time, beyond the limitations of humanity itself. It was a calling, one that she could not ignore. Before she could process the magnitude of it, a sharp crackling sound split the air. The hum of the ship intensified, and Amelia's breath caught in her throat as the walls around them began to shift, their once gentle pulsations now more violent, erratic. "We need to leave," Xari said urgently, their tone no longer soft but commanding. "The forces are close. They have sensed the bond beginning to form. It is only a matter of time before they find us." "Find us?" Amelia repeated, dread crawling up her spine. "What will they do if they find us?" Xari's expression was grave. "They will do everything in their power to prevent the union. They will stop at nothing to ensure the boundaries between species remain intact. Your people will not know peace. The galaxy will remain fractured." Amelia clenched her fists at her sides. She had only just begun to understand what was at stake, but one thing was clear, the path ahead was fraught with danger, and the future of humanity, and possibly the entire galaxy, hung in the balance. Turning on her heel, Amelia strode toward the exit of the chamber, Xari following closely behind. The ship's corridors, once glowing with warm light, now seemed cold and unwelcoming, their walls lined with shifting shadows. Every step they took echoed through the ship, and each sound seemed amplified by the growing tension. "We have to warn the crew," Amelia said, her voice tense. "They don't know what we're facing." Xari nodded, but there was a note of caution in their reply. "They will not understand the full scope of what is happening. The bond between us is not something you can explain in words alone. You must show them, through your actions, through your choices. They will follow you if they trust you." Trust. The word settled in Amelia's mind. She had always relied on her crew, on the strength of their unity, their dedication. But this was different. This was a union that transcended the usual human connections. It was a force beyond comprehension, beyond their understanding. And yet, it had to be embraced, for the sake of humanity's future. They reached the Elysium's bridge, where the rest of the crew was gathered, nervously watching the approaching star systems on the monitor. "Captain!" Lieutenant Reeve exclaimed as he saw her enter. "We detected an anomaly near the planet's outer atmosphere. It's shifting rapidly. It's unlike anything we've ever seen." Amelia turned to Xari, who placed a hand on her shoulder, a gentle but firm reminder of the bond they shared. "They are here," Xari said quietly. "They know you are ready. They are preparing to strike." A sudden, blinding light flared on the monitor, and the bridge crew gasped in unison as the image of a massive, shadowy ship materialized before them. It was vast, more than 10 times the size of the Elysium, its surface sleek and reflective, almost alive in its darkness. "They've come," Reeve muttered, his voice full of fear and awe. "But what do we do now?" Xari stepped forward, their voice steady but laced with urgency. "You must trust Captain Novak. You must trust that the bond she carries will be the key to overcoming this. Only through unity will you survive." Amelia's heart raced as she turned to face her crew. Their eyes were wide with fear, but also with hope. The crew had always trusted her. But this was different. It wasn't just a matter of navigating through hostile space. This was about humanity's very future, a future she was now responsible for shaping. "Prepare for battle," she said, her voice steady as she looked at each of them. "But know this, we don't fight just for survival. We fight for something greater. Something that could change the course of the galaxy." Her words were met with uncertain nods, but Amelia could see the resolve beginning to take root in their eyes. They were with her. They would fight for the future, for love, for unity. The forces that opposed them might be powerful, but Amelia knew one thing for sure, they would not give up. Not now. Not ever. And as the massive shadow ship loomed ever closer, Amelia's pulse quickened with the realization that the moment of truth had arrived. The tension on the bridge was palpable. The massive shadow ship loomed before them, its dark form filling the viewscreen, sending ripples of dread through the Elysium's crew. The ship seemed to radiate an ominous energy, as if it were alive with a malevolent purpose. The crew, now gathered at their stations, was preparing for an inevitable confrontation, but Amelia could feel their uncertainty. They didn't fully understand the gravity of the situation, the stakes of what was happening. But she did. She turned to face her crew, her voice calm but resolute. "We won't just fight to survive. We fight for a future that includes all of us. For the peace that we've never known, and the unity we've never imagined. Trust in each other. Trust in this bond we're about to forge. It's our only hope." Her words hung in the air, and for a brief moment, silence stretched across the room. Then, one by one, the crew nodded, determination hardening their expressions. They had seen her face dangers before, but this was different. They could feel the shift in the atmosphere, the intangible weight of something greater than themselves. This wasn't just a battle against an alien ship, it was a battle for the future of humanity, for the chance to transcend the limitations of their species and unite with something beyond the stars. "We'll follow you," Captain," Lieutenant Reeves said, his voice steady now, though his eyes betrayed a flicker of apprehension. "What's the plan?" Amelia turned to the navigation console. "We engage, but we don't just fight. We need to make them understand that we're not the enemy. That we're not just humans. That we're ready to step into the unknown." Xari's presence was constant beside her, their silent understanding of the situation a comfort and a burden all at once. "You are right, Amelia," Xari said. "You must show them the bond, not just speak of it. They will feel it, if it is strong enough." Amelia nodded, her heart hammering in her chest. The enemy wasn't just an alien race, it was something born from humanity's fear and refusal to embrace the unknown. These were the forces that had kept the galaxy fractured, that had prevented unity. If they were to stand a chance, they had to prove that humanity was ready to transcend its own limitations, to embrace something beyond the fear that had kept them isolated. As the Elysium approached the shadow ship, the enemy vessel's weapons came online. Brilliant streaks of energy fired from its hull, lighting up the dark expanse of space. The crew scrambled into action, their training kicking in as they dodged the initial barrage. The ship shook with each impact, and the bridge was filled with the sounds of alarms and urgent voices. "Shields at 80%, Captain," Reeve reported, his voice strained as he worked to keep the ship intact. "Return fire," Amelia ordered, her voice sharp with authority. "Don't give them a chance to weaken us further. Focus on their weapon systems." The Elysium's weapons roared to life, brilliant blasts of energy tearing through space and striking the enemy ship. The shadow ship's hull flickered as the shields absorbed the hits, but they didn't seem to falter. The enemy was powerful, perhaps more powerful than anything humanity had ever faced. Xari's voice echoed in her mind, their tone urgent. "You cannot defeat them with weapons alone. This is not a battle of strength, but of will. You must show them the bond, the connection." Amelia's mind reeled. How could she make them feel something she barely understood herself? How could she, in the midst of battle, connect with the forces that had been waiting for this moment for so long? But then she remembered the pull, the sensation she had felt when she first encountered Xari, the overwhelming connection, the strange sense of destiny. She realized, with sudden clarity, that this wasn't just about her. It was about the crew, about humanity as a whole. If they were to transcend the fear that had kept them isolated, they had to do it together. "We need to focus," she said, turning to her crew. "Not just on the enemy, but on ourselves. We need to unite. We need to show them that humanity is ready. Ready for the bond, ready for what comes next." The crew exchanged uncertain glances, but they trusted her. They had no choice but to trust her. Xari stepped forward, their presence filling the bridge, overwhelming in its intensity. "Close your eyes, Captain. All of you. Feel the connection." Amelia didn't question the command. She closed her eyes, letting herself relax into the moment. At first, there was nothing but the sound of the battle, the rhythmic pulse of the Elysium's weapons, the distant hum of the enemy ship's shields, the urgent voices of her crew. But beneath it all, she felt something deeper, something ancient, something beyond the physical world. A warmth began to spread from her chest, filling her with a sense of belonging, of unity. It was as if she were part of something far greater than herself, a vast, interconnected whole that stretched beyond time and space. And then, it came to her, the love, the bond that Xari had spoken of. It wasn't just between her and the alien being, it was a bond between all sentient life, a connection that transcended species, barriers, and fear. And then, she felt it, a thread, reaching out from her, touching every member of the crew, every corner of the ship. She felt the pulse of their hearts, the connection that linked them all. It wasn't just a mental bond, it was something deeper, something more primal. And in that moment, she knew. The bond wasn't just with Xari. It was with each other. It was with humanity itself. The crew's breathing slowed, their bodies relaxing, as if they too were feeling the connection that was now flowing through the ship. It wasn't just a mental link, it was physical, spiritual, and emotional. They were all one now, and in that unity, they could feel the pull of the stars, the promise of something greater. Now, Xari's voice whispered in her mind. Now you will show them. With a deep breath, Amelia opened her eyes. The enemy ship's weapons continued to fire, but now, it was different. The pulses of energy seemed to slow, their direction wavering. The Elysium's weapons began to find their mark, not through brute force, but through a delicate precision, striking at the weak points of the shadow ship. The enemy ship shuddered, its shields flickering as the energy blasts began to tear through its hull. But it wasn't the weapons that had shifted the tide, it was the bond. The connection between the Elysium and the forces within the enemy ship, the shared understanding of something greater than war. And, slowly, the shadow ship's movements began to falter. From the depths of the ship, a voice, one not unlike Xari's, reached out. It wasn't spoken aloud but felt in the minds of every person on the Elysium. It was the voice of the ancient forces, the ones who had long resisted unity. And now, for the first time, they hesitated. Perhaps, the voice said, its tone full of doubt. Perhaps the time has come. Amelia's heart surged with hope. This was it. They weren't just fighting for survival. They were fighting for the future of the galaxy. And together, with the bond that connected them all, they would forge a new path, one beyond fear, beyond division. One that would transcend the stars. The silence that followed the voice's hesitant words was almost deafening. The enemy ship had ceased firing, its weapons now a dull hum in the background. The Elysium's crew, still locked in their connection, could feel the uncertainty ripple through the space between them and their enemies. For the first time, the shadow ship seemed to falter, as though its crew was questioning the path they had been following for centuries. The pressure in the air was thick with anticipation, and for a moment, it felt as if the universe itself held its breath. Amelia stood at the helm, her hands resting lightly on the console, as if guiding the ship through the storm of emotions and energies that now coursed through her and her crew. Xari, ever the steady presence beside her, was silent but vigilant, their alien eyes gleaming with an ancient understanding. Are they going to respond? Reeve asked, his voice tense. He was at his station, his fingers flying across the console, though his focus was on the view screen. The massive shadow ship hung there, seemingly suspended in time, its once imposing hull now flickering with uncertainty. They are, Xari replied softly, their voice carrying a deep resonance. But the bond is fragile. You must remain strong, Amelia. Amelia nodded, feeling the weight of Xari's words settle on her shoulders. The bond that now united her crew, her ship, and even the enemy was delicate, one wrong move, one misstep, and everything could shatter. This wasn't a battle of firepower. It was a battle of wills, of hearts, and the very nature of unity itself. She took a deep breath, grounding herself in the connection she now felt with every person aboard the Elysium, with every pulse of energy within the vastness of space. The galaxy, no, the universe itself, was within reach, if only they could break through the fear that had kept them apart for so long. Lieutenant Reeve, she said, her voice steady, open a communication channel with the enemy ship. Reeve hesitated, his fingers hovering over the control panel. Captain, you really want to? Do it, Amelia cut in, her gaze never leaving the view screen. She could feel the weight of her decision pressing on her chest, but it was the only path forward. They need to hear us. The truth. There was a pause, then Reeve nodded. Opening channel now. A soft static hum filled the bridge as the communication line connected. For a moment, all that could be heard was the eerie silence of deep space. The crew held their breath, watching the view screen for any sign of movement, any indication that their message was being received. Then, the air shimmered, and the alien voice, deep, melodic, and filled with an ancient sorrow, echoed in the minds of everyone aboard the Elysium. It was as if the voice came not just through the speakers, but from within their very souls. You have done what none before you could. You have bridged the divide, even if only for a moment, the voice intoned, its tone full of resignation. But what you ask, it is not simple. The past cannot be undone so easily. The forces that shaped this division, they are not so easily swayed. Amelia's heart ached with the weight of the voice's words. This wasn't a victory yet. They had only opened a door, and it was up to them to prove they were worthy of stepping through. I don't ask you to undo the past, Amelia replied, her voice calm and firm. I ask you to step into the future. We don't have to continue down the path of fear and isolation. We have the power to change, to unite. I know it's hard to let go of the old ways. But we cannot allow history to define our future. The bond we share, the bond between all life, this is the way forward. Together, we are stronger. For a long moment, the only sound was the distant hum of the Elysium and the low pulsations of the alien ship. The crew looked to each other, uncertain but hopeful. They had fought for so long, both physically and emotionally, but they had always been divided. Now, they were all part of something greater, a unity that transcended species, a connection that had the power to heal centuries of division. Then, the voice responded once more, its tone now softer, almost pained. Unity, it is a dream long lost. But you are right, Amelia Novak. There is something different about this connection. Something we cannot ignore. The old ways, they are not sustainable. But what you ask, is a revolution. The tension on the bridge was unbearable. Amelia felt a lump rise in her throat, but she forced herself to remain steady. A revolution. It was true, this wasn't just a battle for peace. It was a battle for everything that humanity, and the galaxy as a whole, had ever known. They had to prove that they were ready for the unknown, that they were ready to embrace the future, together. I don't ask for a revolution, Amelia said softly, her voice filled with conviction. I ask for a chance to build a future where we don't have to fight anymore. Where humanity can stand beside you, not as enemies, but as equals. A future where we don't let fear guide us, but love. A future where boundaries are not walls to keep us apart, but bridges to bring us together. Another long silence stretched out, but this time, Amelia could feel a shift. A subtle change in the atmosphere. The shadow ship's once menacing presence now seemed less like a threat and more like a challenge, one that they were on the verge of overcoming. It was as if the very fabric of space itself was waiting for the final decision to be made. Then, the voice returned, this time with a note of something new, something akin to hope. You speak of a future where we are no longer bound by the past, the voice said. Perhaps you are right. Perhaps this bond is what has always been needed. The division is not natural. It is a construct, built from fear, from old wounds. And we have carried those wounds for too long. Amelia's heart surged as she realized that they were on the cusp of something truly profound. This wasn't just about fighting an enemy, it was about healing the very fabric of the galaxy, about erasing the scars of the past and creating something new. The alien forces that had once been enemies were now speaking of peace, of unity. It was a fragile hope, but it was hope nonetheless. We are ready, Amelia said, her voice filled with the certainty she hadn't known she could feel. Together, we can forge a new path. A path where we fight not with weapons, but with the power of our shared connection. The voice responded, now with a sense of acceptance, almost reverence. Then, let us begin. The future awaits. At that moment, the shadow ship's once oppressive presence seemed to fade, as if it had been lifted by the very force of the bond that now linked them all. The Elysium's crew could feel it, an easing of the tension, a lifting of the weight that had hung over them for so long. The enemy ship, no longer an enemy, now aligned itself with them, its dark form no longer threatening but simply another part of the vast, interconnected universe they had always shared. The battle was over. But the true fight, the fight for unity, for peace, was only just beginning. And with the bond that connected them all, humanity and the alien forces would stand together, ready to face whatever came next. In the vastness of space, among the stars that had once been distant and unreachable, a new beginning was born. And in the heart of that beginning, the love that knew no boundaries was the guiding light. The quiet hum of the Elysium was almost a comfort after the chaos of battle, but there was an unmistakable tension in the air. It was not a tension of conflict or fear, but one of anticipation. The galaxy had just shifted on its axis. The moment they had longed for, fought for, and hoped for had arrived. Amelia stood at the bridge, her gaze fixed on the vast expanse of space beyond. The stars, once distant and unreachable, now felt as though they were within her grasp. The threat of the shadow ship had dissipated, not with the roar of weapons, but with the quiet understanding that had blossomed in the heart of this galaxy. Her mind lingered on the words spoken by the alien voice, still echoing in her thoughts. The future awaits. It wasn't just a promise. It was a challenge. The forces that had shaped this galaxy for millennia had finally seen the cracks in the walls that divided them, and for the first time, they were willing to tear them down. Xari stood beside her, their presence a constant source of strength. Their hand rested lightly on the console, their alien eyes filled with something that, to Amelia, looked almost like hope. It was a rare expression for Xari, a being who had witnessed so much, yet still believed that there was a possibility for change. "You did it, Amelia," Xari said, their voice a soft, almost reverent whisper. "You showed them that humanity is capable of what we believed was impossible. The path ahead is uncertain, but you have opened it." Amelia turned to Xari, her heart swelling with gratitude. "We did it," she replied, her voice thick with emotion. "Together. Humanity and the stars." The crew, too, had fallen into a contemplative silence. They had been through so much, and now, they were on the brink of something monumental. But no one spoke of it yet, no one had the words for what had just occurred. The implications of what they had achieved were still settling in their minds. They had bridged the divide not with weapons or force, but with the power of a shared bond, a shared future. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission," Reeves' voice cut through the stillness, pulling everyone's attention back to the matter at hand. His fingers danced across the console, and soon, the viewscreen flickered to life, showing the image of the alien leader. Their form was humanoid, but with an ethereal quality, like something out of a dream. Their presence filled the screen, commanding and serene, yet marked with the same hope that had filled Amelia's heart. Captain Amelia Novak, the voice of the alien leader echoed in the minds of everyone aboard the Elysium. "What you have done, it is more than we anticipated. More than we dared to hope. We were once bound by fear, by the ghosts of our past. But through your strength, through the bond you have created, we see now that there is a future where we are no longer divided. We see now that the galaxy is not a place of enemies, but of allies. We are ready to join you." Amelia's breath caught in her throat. For a long moment, she couldn't find her voice. It was one thing to win a battle, it was another thing entirely to hear that her vision, her belief in unity, had been shared by others. This was more than victory. This was the beginning of something new. A new era for humanity and the galaxy. "We will work together," the leader continued, their voice full of reverence. "To heal the wounds of the past and build the future we all deserve. No longer will we be bound by the shadows. Together, we shall move beyond them." A ripple of relief washed over the crew. They had succeeded. It wasn't just the Elysium's victory. It wasn't just humanity's victory. It was the victory of the future, a future in which boundaries were not walls, but bridges. A future in which fear no longer ruled, and love, understanding, and unity guided the way. Amelia stood straighter, her shoulders squared with the weight of the responsibility she had just inherited. This was not the end. This was the beginning of a new journey, one that would take humanity and their newfound allies far beyond the stars they had once believed were unreachable. But they were ready. She was ready. "I understand," Amelia replied, her voice steady. "We will begin, together. But this is only the first step. The road ahead will not be easy. There will be challenges, and there will be moments of doubt. But as long as we hold on to this connection, as long as we stay united, there is nothing we cannot overcome." The alien leader nodded solemnly. "We will face those challenges together, Captain Novak. And we will grow stronger for them. The universe is vast, but now, we walk it together." With that, the transmission ended. The view screen flickered, and the crew exchanged looks of disbelief and awe. The weight of the moment hadn't fully settled in, but it was starting to. The path they had fought for was not one of endless war, but one of endless possibilities. Amelia took a deep breath, her heart racing with the enormity of what lay ahead. But even in that moment of uncertainty, she knew one thing: they would no longer face it alone. Humanity, along with the alien species that had once been its enemy, would now stand together as allies, forging a new future, one step at a time. Turning to her crew, Amelia smiled. It was a smile filled with hope, with the promise of a future they could build together. "We've just begun, everyone," she said, her voice full of determination. "The universe is wide, and there is much to do. But for the first time, we are not alone. Together, we'll make sure that the galaxy knows what it means to be united." Reeve gave a quick nod, his eyes bright with newfound hope. A future where humanity isn't just surviving, but thriving. Together. Xari stepped forward, their expression serene yet filled with pride. "The bond has been forged. Now, we walk the path it has laid before us. Together." The Elysium's crew gathered around Amelia, each of them feeling the weight of the journey ahead. It was not the journey they had set out on when they first left Earth. But it was a journey they were now ready to take, a journey that would take them across the stars, uniting species, cultures, and hearts that had once been divided. As the Elysium set its course toward the unknown, Amelia looked out once more at the stars. The future awaited. And this time, humanity was no longer alone. Together, they would face whatever came next. The journey of love, of unity, and of exploration had just begun. And in the vast, uncharted expanse of the galaxy, they were ready to write a new chapter, one that would be shared by all. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more exciting HFY stories. Your support means the world to us. And make sure to tap the bell icon so you never miss an update. Stay tuned for our next adventure, and until then, keep exploring the stars. See you in the next video.